Aaron Rodgers, pipe dream. Russell Wilson, pipe dream. Deshaun Watson, probably a pipe dream. All right? And so if I can't get one of those guys, Watson would be the target, then I'm keeping Baker Mayfield. I am not moving on from him for another mediocre, slightly above average quarterback, a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Kirk Cousins, or an unproven backup like a Tyler Huntley. All right, so I'm keeping Baker Mayfield. Huntley. And look, he was tough, and he showed that grit by playing through injuries this season. But I've also got to take into consideration he is injured. And that had a lot to do with his performance. I'm not saying he's some awesome quarterback, but I'm just saying that the injuries does have to become a part of the equation. Now, look, here's the other thing.
Where was this guy?
Cleveland is an awesome city, but everybody doesn't know that. All right? And because of its location, because of its bad reputation in some parts of the country, because of its last 50 years of essentially football futility, it is not a destination franchise. So some great, as Rodgers, Watson, and Wilson attest to, none of them are considering Cleveland. And I got to look at the history. Baker Mayfield, before him, the Cleveland Browns had 29 starting quarterbacks since moving back to Cleveland in 1999. 29! All right, I don't want to go back to that type of instability. All right, those types of yearly quarterback searches where we got a bad quarterback each and every season. I've got Baker. He led them to the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. First playoff victory since they've been back to Cleveland. And there are reasons I can look at this season and say that's why he was subpar. Nick, he's under contract next year. Nice price, $18.5 million. I'm bringing him back and giving him a shot unless I can get one of those stars I mentioned at the top of the segment.
Yeah, I do think what Broussard is laying out is likely what happens. I also think they might bring in some actual competition, and I do, Wild scoffed a bit about Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley, the last month of season's looked better than Baker Mayfield's looked at any point this season.
Right.
And, one is, now, do I think Tyler Huntley is a long-term starter in this league? I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think that's an outrageous name, and that is the type of name you would have to go after. Great quarterbacks do not just come available via free agency. But the story here, Wilds, is that it has come to this. The story is that we are now to the part of the Baker Mayfield saga where it is a legitimate question to ask, should they just cut bait and move on? And here's where I want to take it, Wilds. You can go online and look up a list of logical fallacies. I want to invent one. I want this to be my legacy.
Oh, good.
And that is the
bet
legacy? On yourself fallacy. Yeah, I want to create it. Me and Malcolm Gladwell, we can coin some phrases. The bet on yourself fallacy. And here's the fallacy.
Okay.
If you're on social media, if you're, just living your life, you hear about these bet on yourself stories all the time. And here's the fallacy. You never hear about the bet on yourself guys who are now, unemployed, divorced, homeless, despondent, because those stories don't get told. Well, Baker Mayfield is a bet on yourself guy this year, and it hasn't worked out well. There is an alternate path that could have been walked. The conservative path, the bird in the hand path, the, hey, Browns, right before the season starts, what's the last best long-term contract offer? Okay, let me go ahead and sign that and I'll take it. And guess what? If he had done that, Wilds, guess what? I bet he has the surgery 3 months ago. If he was not playing for a deal and trying to prove his toughness, I think he would have temporarily shut it down the way he should have, and then maybe the Browns in the second half of the season don't lose 3 games where 17 points would have won it. They don't lose games 15-10 and 16-14 in these ugly, awful games. And maybe they're still alive for the playoffs. And maybe we're not talking about Baker Mayfield's future because he's locked in. The Browns, despite having the injury and some issues, are still alive for the playoffs, maybe in the playoffs. But Baker bet on himself, and it blew up in his face. Because I don't think Baker is as bad as he has looked these last few months. But he's not good enough to overcome the injuries. He's already physically limited, and when healthy, and when you add other limitations via injury that I think he thought he had to fight through because he was fighting for a contract. I think it all started there, and it has spiraled out of control since then.
I think that's a great take. The bet on yourself fallacy will be your legacy, my friend. And I like that you just laid it all out on the line. You bet on yourself.
Thanks, buddy.
You didn't ask us any questions like, hey, should this be my legacy? You just bet on yourself. So it's actually self-fulfilling as well. It's really chef's kiss. I loved it.
Thanks.
Here's what I want to push back on about keeping Baker. And Broussard, I'll throw it to you. Because I agree. I went through all the quarterbacks. I'm like, where's the upgrade? A change is not an upgrade. Right. If you don't like your seat on an airplane, it's like, all right, do you want to sit next to the bathroom? It's like, no, I guess not. I guess I'll be here. And like you said, the superstars are gone. So now you're left with, like, if the superstars move, maybe Aaron Rodgers moves, maybe Russ moves, maybe Deshaun goes to Miami. So then those guys are available. Dark horse MVP, Jameis is available. Maybe Tua's available. Are those guys huge upgrades? I don't know. And then you've got the backups, like you said, Tyler Huntley, Mitch Trubisky's out there, Marcus Mariota. Are those guys big upgrades? Again, I don't necessarily think so. So I'm like, yeah, stick with Baker. A healthy Baker will get you to playoffs. But Broussard, I think that makes total sense. How do we square that with the Odell tape that he put out that his dad, didn't necessarily make but helped distribute, and the production that we've seen out of Odell?
Well, look, I said this when OBJ got hurt last year, that Baker, I think, would be better without him. I think Odell's celebrity, his persona, just was too much for a young quarterback, not just a young Baker Mayfield, but a young quarterback to handle. And I think he felt obligated to look for OBJ and to get him the ball. And he wasn't able to be a great quarterback with OBJ. And when OBJ got hurt, we saw that he played well. Now, OBJ with the Rams is different. What is he, the third option? I mean, he obviously isn't the first. He obviously isn't the best receiver on that team. Whereas in Cleveland, he was the best receiver. He was the most talented for sure. And you felt this obligation to get him the ball. So I don't hold that against Baker. As far as the tape that his dad made, Odell Beckham Sr., I think you can make that for a lot of quarterbacks, honestly, if you really picked them apart and found open receivers that they missed. So I'm not holding that against him as well. And I think, like we said, at the money next year, Nick, I think they bring back Baker. And it could work out for him. Because you said he should have signed, $30 million. They offered $32 million a year. He should have signed that. Well, if he plays well next season, even if they franchise him, that'll be a high number. And then if he eventually gets the long-term deal, Nick, that'll be far more money than he could have gotten
the
before.
Flip side is
I don't think
Mitch Trubisky.
There's no pressure.
The flip side is he's playing for a couple million in 2 years.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.